Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show, sponsored by Betfred, the final one of the season. Yes, I know, I'm gutted as well. It's been a fantastic season. So much to look back on, but still so much more to come as well, with the playoffs, the Europa League and the Champions League finals. And then there's the Euros as well, with Gareth Southgate naming a provisional squad of 33 players. Danny Mills knows a thing or two about playing for England and in major tournaments as well. He's alongside Mark and myself. Danny, good to see you. How are you? How much have you enjoyed this season?
It's been great. I mean, it's been very, very difficult at times. You know, the last couple of games with fans back has made such a difference. I was at the Brighton-Manchester City game. Without fans, that could have been 4-5-0, I think, to Manchester City. But, you know, Brighton, they rallied against all the odds because of their fans, you know, and it just goes to show the atmosphere makes such a difference.
It really does, Mark, and it feels like we can breathe a little. Actually, until the Euros come, and then it all goes again. But look, in one of the strangest seasons in the history of mankind, and I'm trying to be over-dramatic here, how would you sum up this season?
Survival, I think, you know.
Is that just you or the team?
Well, it did feel like it. I think for everybody that was, even if you were just watching the games, you know, it was, I think, I've spoken to people that haven't maybe got sort of like a close family network around them, and football kept them going. It really did, sort of that structure to their lives of, you know, there's games at the weekend, there's games in the week, there was something to look forward to, there was something to look back on, you know, in sort of really dark times. And, you know, players get a beating a lot of the time, but, you know, not just the Premier League ones, right the way down, you know, they were playing through it. It couldn't have been great playing in front of empty stadiums, but... And
also everything goes on with the training and the COVID restrictions
bubbles
there.
And bubbles. Free coaches to get to games and, you know, having to work in gyms in just little groups and stuff like that. I think that everybody involved really did fantastically well to keep the show on the road. You know, last season most of the leagues finished, and then this season, particularly in the EFL, to get through a whole season virtually without fans at that kind of level is really, it would have taken a lot to do that, you know, off the field as well, you know, businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations to everybody involved, Premier League, EFL level, on and off the pitch. Let's talk about this week's big talking points, the final week then, shall we? If we look at the final league positions, we'll talk about who overperformed and underperformed. But I just want to ask you a specific question on your old club, Man City. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, they won the Premier League some time ago. It's almost the second of back-to-back seasons because it just sort of blurred into one, really, the last 2 years. So how much credit goes to them for not just winning the title, but really blowing everyone else out of the water?
I think they've been absolutely magnificent. And when everyone said at the start, it's the worst start that Pep Guardiola's ever had, you have to remember they were 2 games behind everybody because they started a little bit late, didn't they? So there was always sort of 6 points in the bag. And then Guardiola said, I don't like the way that my team are playing. I'm going to reinvent it. Aguero's clearly not been fit all season long. So to win the Premier League without your top goal scorer for the last, I don't know, 9 seasons, whatever it's been, you know, an absolute legend of the football club, to take that out of it, to play really with no centre forward for much of the season. I know Jesus has filled in from time to time, but he's not an out-and-out centre forward. They played with a false 9 more often than not. To reinvent yourself and to go on that winning run of, you know, 20 plus games, straight wins, was just sensational. Absolutely magnificent. And he's tinkered with the team every single week. It's rarely has it been the same 11 that go out. The way that he manages to rotate that squad, keep all those egos happy, is sensational. And like I said, you know, what do they end up losing? 6 games, which is quite unusual for a Premier League season. But that's really because they'd won it with 15 games to go, effectively, because they were that good.
So let's look at who overperformed then. I mean, obviously City's one of them, but who else for you, Mark?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if City overperformed as such. I mean, I think...
OK, they played to their maximum.
Yeah, they did. I mean, in terms of overperformed, I mean, when I looked at the league table and saw Newcastle in 12th, I couldn't believe my eyes at the end of the campaign. But I think the ones were Leeds, you know, one of Danny's old clubs. And it wasn't just the fact that they finished in the top half. It was the fun with which they did it. And I think that actually Bielsa did recognise some faults in the team. You know, there were some chaotic games early on that were fantastic for the neutrals, but he didn't enjoy losing them. And contrary to popular opinion, he doesn't like losing 6-5. You know, that's not. We saw that. You know, towards the end, wasn't it? He tightened right up. There was the home games against like Chelsea and Manchester United that were nothing like the away games there. I don't think any of the big teams won at Ellen Road, and that was without fans. So you can imagine what that's going to be like next season. And they quite often sort of play teams off the pitch with players, a lot of them that were middling Championship performers before he went there.
Leeds have been superb. I kind of thought they would be, although results-wise, perhaps even overperformed that way.
They're just a unique, unusual team.
Yeah.
You know, and people can say, well, what about second? Will teams work them out? Teams have known what they're going to do for the last 3 seasons, but it's so difficult to play against. As Mark says, when it's great, it's unplayable. When it's bad, you get beaten heavily.
Yeah.
You know, there's no middle ground with Leeds. It's either, you know, amazing, win 4-2, or you get beat 4-0. You know, the man-to-man system that they play, we've said it so many times, it's like what you used to try in training. And after, the lads after a while, can't do this, it's impossible. You know, we need to start playing proper football.
The matches become easier.
Well, yeah, but somehow he just keeps churning it out. I think they need to strengthen next season to avoid that second season drop off. But they've got players. You know, Koch hasn't played this much this season. Llorente hasn't played an awful lot. Rodrigo hasn't played that much. So you've got sort of new signings from last season that are ready to step in and boost their chances.
I've got it down here. I mean, Leeds superb.
West Ham, I think, need a special mention.
West Ham. I was waiting for someone to bring that up.
I mean,
because look, at the start of the season, what was it? The Newcastle game where they lost, and then they had that terrible sort of fixture list coming up, and we were kind of worried.
I mean, it's expectations, isn't it? You look at the league table and the start of the season, you go, right, we'll all do our predictions. You think, West Ham, bottom half perhaps. So to be in the Champions League places for so long, okay, maybe they just didn't quite have the strength in depth. There were some better teams out there. But to finish where they finished was sensational. The way that they've played, the job that David Moyes has done on a very, very tight budget as well. You know, he hasn't been able to bring it. He's not brought in hugely expensive players. The recruitment has been fantastic. So I think, West Ham, from where you expect them to be, maybe sort of 5th, maybe 16th, 15th, 14th, to finish where they did is sensational.
I was leaving them for you, Scott. I knew you were going to mention it.
Well, if you didn't mention it, I was going to. and it's amazing, isn't it, how the ups and downs of a season, and then you look back at a league table. I mean, Mark's alluded to it. Newcastle 12th. I mean, what do we think about Steve Bruce and Newcastle? What do you believe the fans should be thinking?
The fans don't particularly like him, do they? And that goes down to style of football sometimes, which I still think is a huge myth. It's got to be about winning football first and foremost. And if you can win playing great, then that's fine. But football's about winning. That's why there are trophies at the end of seasons. That's why there's a league table. You know, because if you don't win, it doesn't matter how good you play, you get relegated and you're out of the division. He's got his better players back. He's brought in attacking coaches. When they've got all their players fit, they're a good side. And Sam Maximan is a huge part of that. He's very, very exciting. He was decimated with injuries throughout the season. I know a lot of teams have been, through this season. He also had huge issues with COVID and players missing for 2 or 3 months. So he never really had his strongest team until the back end of the season. I was always confident, got a lot of flack from Newcastle fans that, stick with Steve Bruce, you'll be absolutely fine. I think that was maybe with about 15, 16 games to go where you think, well, they only need 2 wins, they'll be fine. And then they just couldn't get those, they could not buy those wins from anywhere, could they?
And it looked for all the world that Fulham would catch them.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Sam Maximan comes back into it and they start performing, they start scoring goals, and they look a completely different side. If you'd have said at the start of the season, Newcastle finished 12th, you'd have gone, yeah, it's about right. Roughly where you expect them to be.
I would have put them a bit lower, to be honest. So bizarrely, Newcastle fan, you could say, well, Newcastle probably sort of outperformed. Well, there you go.
Themselves. Steve Bruce needs a new contract, says Scott Minto.
Enough of those broad shoulders that you've got there. I mean, if we look back to the first show of the season when we had Kevin Campbell and Glenn Johnson said when the pressure is off West Ham, they could be the biggest shock. So fair play to him for doing that, because I was worried after that first defeat. Most of the panel thought that Leicester would underperform in terms of having to deal with the European football. So how do you look at Leicester's season? Won the FA Cup for the first time in their history, but fallen out of the top 4 again for a second successive season.
On the whole, it's been a good season. but the way they finished, incredibly disappointing. And I think they've got to look at that and question, it happened last season. You know, after sort of Project Restart, they tumbled away. They did not finish the season well. This season, they managed to get through periods without players, with big injuries, and they were still in there. And in the last 4 games, they blew it again. You start to think, does that become a mental issue? You know, why is that? 2 seasons in a row, they've fallen out.
Why do you think it is?
I'm not quite sure. Maybe those players, is it nerves? Is it just lack of quality, perhaps? Having said that, if it had been the other way round, if the season would have finished and then they'd have won the FA Cup, you finish on a high and everyone's going, well, you actually know what, it's a really good season. The fact that the FA Cup was a week before that, now everyone's on a bit of a downer. So they've been unfortunate the FA Cup was sort of before the end of the season. Across the board, it's a good season, but to be in the top 4 for so long and to drop out for a second season and miss out on Champions League, I think they will be bitterly disappointed with that. Yeah,
disappointing, but fantastic that they have won the FA Cup and they are a top 6 club at the moment. Who else underperformed for you, Mark?
I think you look at that sort of just below the top 6, obviously Tottenham, Arsenal, their problems have been sort of, I think, well documented, and one manager got the sack and Arsenal season just never got going, and Aubameyang gave him the big contract. I'm not sure that's necessarily why he didn't perform, but he didn't perform, and it was just a nothing season for them throughout. But I'm going to pinpoint Everton. I think Everton and Ancelotti is getting away with it a little bit, and the other managers took a lot of the flack, and Mourinho was definitely one of them. I mean, he's finished 10th with Everton, having bought Doucouré, Alan in as well, James Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin scored goals, Richarlison, decent player, Godfrey's just been called up for England. I think that they should be putting more pressure on themselves. If West Ham can crack the top 6, then and Leicester can go so close, Everton were quite a long way off that, for the second half of the season, and they had some big wins like at Anfield, but I don't think that's enough.
You think they'll be better next season with the fans back in? Because the home form was the issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then the away form might dip. Maybe they won a lot of their away games because it was easier. You didn't have to deal with the crowd at Anfield. So
that's why I don't argue with him.
No, I just think that they were average.
Well, yeah, and I think you have to throw Liverpool into that.
I agree.
I think Liverpool have underperformed and got away with it. Getting into the Champions League. As they have done. Sort of last 2 games of the season, Alisson scored a goal. I don't think anyone predicted that. I'm not sure how many people had him on a betting slip. Alisson to score at any time. There's a few people made some money off the back of that, haven't they? And then you have to look at Sheffield United, who were just shocking from the first moment. And it's really difficult. And there's always going to be a little bit of second season syndrome, but they were just appalling all the way through.
Everton, Liverpool, Sheffield United. I wonder if the fans, there's a common theme there with the lack of fans. We'll have to see what happens from next season, where hopefully there'll be full capacity, if not very close to. Let's talk about the sack races. I've got here, Mark mentioned a few names, Hodgson, Lampard and Nuno, none of which are still here by the end of the season. Did you write that? Or
it wasn't. I mean,
did you say all 3? And if so, what are the 6 lottery numbers?
Yeah. I mean, sort of, in terms of Hodgson, he probably, you knew it was going to be his last season. It was just whether Palace went early enough, but he did a good enough job. You could see the problems coming at Wolves. I think I'm not as. That's why I didn't put them down as sort of underachieving. I think that in the summer they looked like there were a couple of issues there. The recruitment was a little bit odd, and Nuno didn't look particularly happy. Frank Lampard, I know you were singing his praises, Scott, and felt that it was too early. Maybe it was, but if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Roman Abramovich has shown time and time again what he thinks of sort of managers and what they need to do. And so it didn't surprise me in the slightest that as soon as they had a wobble, Lampard was out. I mean, they don't care that he's the record goal scorer and a club legend. He will just continually sack managers, and it works for them in many ways.
Well,
but
it always works for Chelsea, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Realistically, they get rid of managers. We always say too quickly. They don't get any time, but they keep performing. They keep getting to finals. They keep winning trophies. So clearly, Roman Abramovich has the ability to sack people, bring someone else in, get the bounce effect, bursts and then redo it all over again.
Yeah, I was incredibly naive there, I think, to think that Frank Lampard was maybe different in Roman Abramovich's eyes. OK, let's go across the leagues now, shall we? And a quick look at a few of the title-deciding games across Europe. La Liga. Atletico Madrid did it in front of Real Madrid. 1-0 down at half-time. Luis Suarez with the winner. It wasn't a good decision by Barcelona to let him go, was it?
Well, it clearly wasn't a football decision, was it? We know that. Whatever you think of, Luis Suarez, he is a fantastic player, an incredible competitor. You pair that with Diego Simeone, I think the highest paid coach in the world, one of the best defensive coaches on the planet. Love the fact that his wardrobe is only black. There was nothing else.
He's got a Men in Black wardrobe.
I assure him his house, the walls are black. The sheets are black. Everything is just black. His cars are black. Everything. He's the archetypal baddie, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
But they are just brilliant. Time and time again, they punch well above their weight, and to concede only 25 goals in Liga. It's just superb, and that's why they won it. They are attritional. They aren't the free-flowing Barcelona or Real Madrid type teams, but they are incredibly effective. And they might pay high wages, but they don't really spend huge on transfer fees.
No, I think Simeone. Sorry, Scott. I think Simeone has sort of made Atletico into a big three. Like La Liga was a two-horse race. And I know Barcelona and Real Madrid have kind of come back. They spent above what they could afford, and Messi's gone on sort of age-wise. Ronaldo's left, but Atletico Madrid were not sort of this team before Simeone went there. He has made it into a big three, and it's just mainly down to just sheer hard work.
He's sort of the new Mourinho in almost the style that he plays. It's like we defend no matter what, because if you're going into a game and thinking, well, we can't lose and we need to just somehow get a result. You look at coach. You go, Mourinho could do that. Simeone can definitely do that. And I think he's in that mould. And as much as we all go, it's great to watch attacking, free-flowing, tick-attacker football. Sometimes you just have to be effective. And I think Simeone is one of the most effective coaches.
It's nice to see something different at times as well. And when you go out there thinking, actually, we only needed one goal to win, more often than not, that certainly helps as well. I mean, look, you're right. It is the kind of big three now, and it's a golden period in their history at the moment. But with the other two deep in financial trouble, any chance of a shift of balance of power here?
Well, there is, but Real Madrid and Barcelona find ways to get money usually, and at some stage, Real Madrid has still been linked with Mbappe, and you think, well, how can you afford Mbappe? It's going to be 150, 200 million plus wages, but we've seen before that they find ways out of this financial crisis. On the sort of just looking at it on paper, you would say, yes, that Atletico are in a really good and strong position because they haven't quite gone to the limits that Barcelona and Real Madrid have done before. But we have seen previously that they've balanced their books in a way that enables them to sort of stay competitive when it doesn't look
They
like
don't
it
have
should.
the worldwide glamour, do they, of Barcelona and Real Madrid. So they don't have the commercial ability to go out worldwide and sort of get sponsorship and all that type of thing. And I think that's the only thing really that will hold them back, because it's like suddenly there's talk obviously what might happen. Barcelona, Real Madrid not in the Champions League. That's massive on a global level, because those teams they are Barcelona and Real Madrid are global football teams.
UEFA don't want that really. Do they?
Of course they don't, and because all of a sudden everyone else is going, well, hang on a minute, all the rights. Well, if they're not in it, we're not sure about the rest. It's to be like if you were a broadcaster. Well, actually, we're going to take the Portugal game. Oh, but Ronaldo's not playing. Oh, maybe not then. Maybe we don't want to show that game anymore because people are interested in the big players. It's not just Real Madrid and Barcelona. And Atletico don't quite have that power yet.
OK, if it's a big story in Spain, the fact that Atletico won, how about in France then? Little old Lille, they did it, didn't they? I mean, they beat PSG too. How big an achievement is that?
It's absolutely remarkable for a team that was falling apart really at the top because the owner had wasn't involved as much anymore. Sporting director Campos, who is a friend of Mourinho, and put the team together. They lost Osimhen for huge money to Napoli. They lost Nicola Pepe before that to Arsenal, and actually they just bought better players, or certainly for the money. They were able to invest that in young players mainly, but then there were a couple of older guys in there. And I do think in English football, we're quite quick to go, oh, they're too old now. And somebody like Jose Font at the back,
Totally
part of the best defence in Europe, they were even tighter than Atletico Madrid. And then Burak Yilmaz, Turkish veteran centre forward who was in China, came back to France, has scored a lot of goals. And it's great to see. I mean, the team's fallen apart. The goalkeeper's already gone to Milan. Many of the young players will also leave. The coach has quit. So you only get...
Oh dear. Sounds like they've been relegated, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're not defending the title, are they?
But the thing is, with a team like that, you only usually get one chance.
Yes.
That is your chance.
And then you make your money.
And then
It's a Leicester scenario, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of Monaco had it before in France. So, but for Paris Saint-Germain, huge embarrassment.
What does this mean, if anything, for Poch? A lot of rumours flying around, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I don't think Paris will sack him. There was no sort of reports in France that if he didn't win the league, they'd get rid of him. I think that they realised that there were problems when he went there. The season had already started when Paris Saint-Germain were playing in the Champions League, so they were like last season's final. So they were behind, the eight ball in that regard. They had enough to get out of it. But it wasn't necessarily Pochettino's fault. They don't believe in France and certainly in Paris. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it massively. That would be the only thing that would maybe sort of give Spurs fans hope, I suppose, that he would come back. I don't think he will. But that team is not in his image. It's not humble. It's not necessarily hard-working.
It's a team of individuals, isn't it?
And that, I don't think he's enjoying that aspect of it. And bringing it all together with Neymar and Mbappe and all the stars, maybe there are sort of better jobs for him where he can work on the training ground.
You've got too many mavericks that are incredibly talented players, but they're not necessarily. It's not about the team, is it?
No.
It's about how many goals they can score, how many assists they can get, how well do I play, and actually we'll worry about the team later.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you think what Pochettino built at Tottenham. It was all about team, and bringing those players through and getting them into the mould that he wanted. PSG is completely the opposite to that.
It's not what Poch is about, but congratulations to Lille and, of course, to Atletico Madrid as well. Let's move it on then. Europa League final. As we speak, it's this evening, so we'll be quite brief here. Mark and I touched on this last week. How big a game is this for Ollie? How much does he need to win? Are there any implications? Should there be any implications if they don't win this?
Yeah, I've heard lots of people say if Ollie doesn't win it, they need to make a change. And I understand that. I don't think that will happen at this stage.
Do you agree with it?
It's a difficult one because, it'll be another semi-final, final that they've not won. Manchester United is all about winning. You've got to win trophies. They dropped out of the Champions League. It was pathetic, really, performance that they put in to get knocked out of that. So now they've got this opportunity. If you don't win this game, again, questions will be asked about mentality. Can you take Manchester United back to where they think they belong? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's already come out and said this is the biggest club in the world. Oh, it's a bold statement when you've got to play, when you're the favourites going into a game. Obviously, Harry Maguire looks like he's going to be out. That could be a problem for United, who comes in. But Cavani's the difference, I think. If Cavani is fit and plays, I think probably Manchester United will win it, and that will be okay. But if they don't win it, does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer win a trophy, a big trophy, in the next 3 seasons? I'm talking Champions League or Premier League. I don't think he does, if I'm honest. Because I think City will get stronger, Chelsea will get stronger, Liverpool will get stronger, the European teams will get stronger. And this is why all the talk of Harry Kane going to Manchester United, it's not about whether United want Kane, it's whether Kane believes that they will win a trophy in the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't think United will.
He has to go out and just say to the bosses above, we need Harry Kane, whatever Spurs ask for. Otherwise, it definitely will be his final season. But I do think he will be there next season, whatever. I mean, look, Villarreal lost to Real Madrid on Saturday. They finished 7th, but they got past Arsenal. And they've got a manager who loves this competition, haven't they?
Unai Emery, yeah. And Spanish teams in general have done very well in the Europa League. I think that they treat it as a priority. The fact they've only got one knockout competition, I think, helps. Sort of, England have got 2. And also, for teams like Villarreal and Sevilla, winning La Liga is like the impossible dream at the moment, because you've not only got the big 2, you've now got the big 3, as we've spoken about. So the Europa League, it is a really important competition. I think Villarreal have done fantastic to reach the final. I wasn't massively impressed with them against Arsenal. I mean, it's a very average Arsenal team.
They're pragmatic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a worry for Manchester United, because United like to play on the counter-attack. They prefer it when other teams sort of dominate them. That's been some of their best performances. Unai Emery is going to know them very, very well. I think they're going to sit deep and they'll make it very, very difficult, and they'll try and stifle Manchester United, and that might make it tough. And also, they've got the extra carrot that it's Champions League football.
Yeah. Okay, Betfred selection for this one.
I'm going to go United to win 2-1 and Cavani to score.
Actually, I'm going for both teams to score and United to win. I think Maguire will be a miss. I can see Villarreal scoring, but I can see United winning.
Yeah, I fancy United. If you want to bump the price up, maybe Manchester United to win by 1 goal.
Okay, let's move this on now, shall we? In our Saturday Champions League final, all English final. It is Man City against Chelsea. And Danny, interested in your thoughts that Chelsea have beaten City. Tuchel has beaten Pep twice, the last 2 occasions. Does that in any way play a factor here? Would it for you if you were playing on either side?
I think so for Chelsea. I think because you go into the game saying, look, we don't need to fear this team. We know how good they are. But the team talk is easier, isn't it? Look, lads, believe in yourselves. You're as good as these. If you've been beaten twice heavily by the opposition and you finished below them in the league and you didn't win the cup or whatever, suddenly you're going, oh, actually, when we go into this with a little bit of fear, how do we beat these? Can we beat these? They've done that now. So that takes that fear factor away. So I think Tuchel goes in and says, look, what an opportunity you've got. We are the underdogs. Go out and do what you did last time out. So I think Chelsea, I think it'll be tough for Chelsea because Manchester City and Pep are desperate, absolutely desperate. And as long as Pep doesn't overthink it and overtinker.
Do you think there's a danger he could?
Not this season. I think he's done it 2 or 3 seasons before. I think he did it at Bayern, where he changed things maybe a little bit too much and it cost them. He did it last season, obviously in the Champions League, and that cost City. I think we pretty much know what their team is going to be. With the false 9, Bernardo Silva or Foden as the false 9, the front man, or even De Bruyne, and City will just go out and play. And if they play to their best, they should have enough to beat Chelsea.
Mark, what have you made of Chelsea over the last week or so? They lost the FA Cup final. They got revenge in what was a crucial game in the league against Leicester, but then they lost the last game of the season against Villa and relied on Leicester losing elsewhere to finish in the top 4. Where are they right now?
It wasn't a great finish. I felt like they were a little bit unlucky in the FA Cup. I mean, they conceded very few chances, and Tielemans puts one in the top corner from 20-25 yards. I think that was Leicester's only shot on target in the game. I thought they played really well in the reverse game in the Premier League, and that was right sort of the level that you expect of sort of the Chelsea team with the talent they've got. Against Aston Villa, that we felt that was going to be a tricky game. We said that last week. They dominated a lot of the play and had the sort of shots and chances, but the defence can't keep clean sheets in every game, and at some stage the forwards do have to take the responsibility. I felt in the FA Cup final they just waited for things to happen. They felt like they were in control and they would eventually score. I think they need to be a bit more aggressive against Man City, not go gung-ho, but just sort of try to make things happen a little bit more, like they did at the Etihad actually in the second half. They played well in that game. And
they also did in the FA Cup semi-final as well, didn't they? They passed the ball really well. They almost out-pepped Pep. And I remember there was one point in that game about sort of 65th, 70th minute where they passed, and Man City player sort of went on his own, which is unusual for Pep's side, turned around, realised no one was around him, and you could see the body language.
Chelsea have the best squad, I think, in the Premier League after Manchester City. When you look at the players on the bench that they have to bring on, that could be, whatever you think, that could be Havertz, who is still a fantastic talent to bring on. Could be Ziyech coming on as well. Giroud can come on and do something a little bit different. Pulisic come off suddenly you go, hang on, that's some attacking talent. And what Chelsea do have is energy. With the likes of Mason Mount and Kante in there as well. Kovacic, Jorginho, that's some midfield. You've got World Cup winners in there. So I don't think you can underestimate Chelsea, because what Chelsea do have is energy. So I think they will cause City problems. I think it certainly won't be an easy game for Manchester City.
You say you know sort of City's team, City's 11. What about Chelsea, and what does Tuchel do up front and those sort of attacking midfielders? Because you say the squad is brilliant, so who would you put in there? What about Timo Werner?
I think you play him because as much as people are going, but he keeps missing chances, But I've seen Patrick Bamford do that for Leeds, time and time again. But he's doing something for the team. He's the threat in behind, and that then stretches. John Stones will be on, and Diaz will be thinking, hang on a minute, we just got to give ourselves an extra couple of yards because he's going to run in behind. That then allows Mount to get on the ball, or Pulisic, or Ziyech, whoever is playing in those attacking midfield positions. I think Werner has to play.
As a defender, you're thinking you're not thinking he might score. You're thinking he can make me look silly first and foremost.
And you're also thinking he's going to run in behind.
Yeah.
And it's going to be whether he's fractions, if he's it's going to be inches whether he's offside or not, and he's going to make 10 runs, and he might be offside for 8 of those, but the 2 he's not. If I haven't dropped off and tracked him and I can't catch him, they score. So you've got to be aware of that as a defender. So I think he. As much as he does get caught offside, probably more than Darren Huckabee ever did. But I think he's a threat, and he causes you problems and things you have to think about.
So look, you've played in massive games. You've played in the Champions League. You've played in World Cups. What's the difference? Do you treat it any differently? How do you feel coming into it? And in terms of these two teams right now, who do you think will be able to handle that kind of pressure better?
All of these players have played in huge games. I think the build-up to it is always a little bit different. You know the enormity of the occasion. Whether it be Champions League semi-finals, quarter-finals, getting to the next stage, or a World Cup. Once you're out on the pitch, it's just the game. And I know that's a massive cliche, but first and foremost, it's me against my opposite number, and then my team against that team, and you go from there. And the sort of the occasion, until you're winning maybe or losing with 10 minutes to go, doesn't really kick in, and you realise what's at stake.
No, you're right, because these are top class players, so perhaps all of them could handle the occasion. But what are the crucial factors for you going into such a big game?
I think you've got to keep hold of your adrenaline and keep hold of your emotions early on in the game. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the occasion, to get wrapped up in the music and the fanfare and everything else, and go out and all of a sudden you make a mistake, or you're on a booking, or you miss that crucial chance because you're trying too hard, or you're too tense. And this is why they're the best, because we all know it's about decision making for those players. So they've just got to keep that simmer level, of just being not quite boiling point, just underneath it, to be at the very, very top, but staying calm. And this game is going to come down to a mistake, a wonder goal. It's going to come down to probably 2 moments in the game that is going to decide whether Chelsea win the Champions League again, or whether Manchester City win it for the first time. It's not going to be a 5-0 or any sort of game like that. So it's those fine moments. Does the goalkeeper make an incredible save? Does Timo Werner score that chance, or does he miss that chance? And that's how tight it's going to be.
Before I ask you your Betfred selection, how do you see the game developing, Mark?
I think it will be sort of quite tight. I mean, even like last season's Champions League final, Bayern Munich against Paris Saint-Germain, most people were excited that would be goals, because Bayern fly forward, PSG had all the pace on the counter-attack. It never really developed like that. The year before, Liverpool against Tottenham, there was a really early goal in the game, and then kind of was pretty flat for most of the game. And you don't want to lose it early, and it just feels like it will just be like a slow burner, I think, because what Danny was saying there about, don't make the mistake early. You quite often see that in really big matches, that there is a lot of respect shown for both teams, and do City just drop off that little bit more? I mean, in the Premier League game, Chelsea pressed Man City really high up the pitch and sort of almost went man for man with that back three and sort of pressured City into making mistakes. Do they do that again? Or have they shown their hand in that respect? And then, did you actually think, well, no, because Guardiola's seen that before, he would have worked that out. And there'll be a lot of thinking, I think. Tuchel and Guardiola are quite good friends in terms of the fact that they, I think they see football the same way. Tuchel maybe hasn't shown that yet quite at Chelsea, but I think he does see that sort of more like a Pep Guardiola even than a Jurgen Klopp. So there's a lot of respect on both teams. I think it'll be a really tight game, settled by a set piece.
Okay, I mean, we do kind of know which way City are going to play. So what does Tuchel do? Does he try and press them high, or does he try and sit back?
I think he will. I think he'll try and disrupt them early on. And that might be playing some longer balls over the top, to try and turn that defence around, to get them facing their own goal. I think that's what you've got to do, because you can't allow City to just have the ball and dominate possession and sit back, because however well you defend, the attacking 6, 7, probably 8 that the fullbacks, going forward as well, that they will create chances.
And the centre midfielder that's playing in goal as well.
Yeah, so you've got to cause them problems, and you've got to look to maybe try and get in behind them. The left back area for City, is that something that they can exploit? Does Werner maybe switch sides, or does Ziyech play on that side to try and get in behind that situation, Pulisic even? So I think you've got to be on the front foot, and you've got to take the game to Manchester City.
Okay. Who's winning the Champions League this year, Manchester City or Chelsea?
Well, on that, because I think Chelsea will take it to City, I think Chelsea will score first, but I think Manchester City will come back and end up winning it 2-1.
Wow. First goal is normally crucial in these big finals as well, isn't it?
I think Man City will win. My sort of best bet, though, for the game, I mentioned it earlier about set pieces. I think they're going to play a huge part. So at massive prices, first goal scorer, Ruben Dias or Rudiger. So you've got one for each team. I can see it being settled by something like that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the odds, I think the value bet here is a Chelsea 1-0 win. I think there's probably only going to be one goal in it, like we saw in the FA Cup semi-final. I've got a bad feeling about this, though. I do think it's Pep's year, and I do think it's City's time as well. So the head says City 1-0. The heart says Chelsea 1-0. Go with what you want there. OK, game preview 2 on Saturday. In fact, just before that, the richest game in world football. It's the Brentford versus Swansea, the Championship playoff final. And Mark, how much credit should we give Brentford? When you think about what happened last year, lost the first leg 1-0, went 1-0 down to 2-0 in aggregate. Things would have been going on in their mind. To come back and win that 3-2 on aggregate.
Yeah, obviously nice when you can get a penalty and a red card, and they'll maybe feel that they've not had the luck. In the last couple of years, things have just gone against them at certain times, and they'll maybe feel that they would deserve that. And they didn't start particularly well, did they? I mean, the goal that they conceded was even worse than the one Man United conceded in Istanbul. Sort of nobody defending. I think that we shouldn't take for granted just how good they've been in the last few years in terms of their recruitment, selling player after player and just replacing them. Ollie Watkins goes, we'll just bring in Ivan Toney. Ben Rama goes, we've got the next one lined up. That is not easy to do, particularly on their budget, and I think that they would be very worthy of the Premier League.
Yeah, well, what do you think, Danny, in terms of what happened last year, where they were favourites? I mean, I did the game and they didn't turn up at all. Will that sort of help them, inspire them, or will that heap even more pressure on? Because there's still those kind of accusations are great team, great philosophy in what they do, but they choke at the end.
You're always going to get that until you get over the line, aren't you? And we talked about that earlier with Leicester. We talked about that with Tottenham in the past. I think Brentford, Ivan Toney missed a lot of chances in that game. I don't think that's going to happen again. Top goal scorer has been fantastic. Maybe just had an off day. I think Brentford will be too strong. I think they are a very, very good side. I think the experience of last year, and we've often seen that. We've seen with teams going down now. From the Premier League into the Championship and bouncing straight back. Leeds failed dramatically, in the playoffs in the Championship, and then came back the next season and were much stronger. So I think now teams, because they've got better quality players, maybe the budgets are slightly higher in terms of wages, they can ride out that storm. And I think Brentford had a little bit of a scare, but I think now that's probably done them a little bit of good going into this game.
I agree as well. Look, got to touch on Swansea and Steve Cooper especially. We like Graham Potter, and we think he's going places even higher than Brighton. But Steve Cooper, what he's done in the 2 years was better than what Graham Potter did in his one.
It was, yeah. I think that he obviously plays a pretty similar style of football. I think he's had it quite hard, and I think that to keep Swansea up and around the playoffs is a really good job. Someone like Ayew He's got that Premier League quality in him. But I think what Cooper has done very well is use his contacts within the game, and Premier League managers trust their young players with him, and that is a very important part, whether it's Championship or League One, to have those contacts that can get you sort of young Premier League players is a real.
He's got a very good goalkeeper as well,
Yeah.
that he knows from England setup, and obviously in Freddie Woodman, who I think might be quite busy on Saturday. But yeah, I think he's still on loan from Newcastle.
Yeah, he is.
He's been at Newcastle 10 years. He's hardly played. He's been on, he's been on loans at every other club. He's a very, very capable goalkeeper. He's not young anymore. He's 24. Obviously, he's been through the whole England setup. If they are going to do it, he has to have one of the, probably most incredible games of his life, I think, to keep them in.
I mean, neither are one-man teams, but how important do you feel it will be Ivan Toney and Andre Ayew as well? I mean, Toney up against Guy and Cabango. Guy, on loan from Chelsea, has been absolutely superb all season, but certainly recently as well. So that's going to be some battle, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I think Toney is in such great form at the moment. Missed a few chances, which was very, very unlike him in the last game. But I think now, as I said, that's out of his system. It's like, forget that one. I'd be surprised if he doesn't score one, maybe even two in this game.
Okay. I think you've answered my question. Who's going to the Premier League?
I think it's going to be Brentford.
Scoreline or?
I think Brentford will win this probably 3-1 in the end, and I think Toney will definitely be on the score sheet.
I like Brentford to win as well. Both league games were draws, but over the season, Brentford were, I think, even bigger and better than the sort of 7-point difference would see from the table.
I'm going for Brentford as well. I don't see such a discrepancy in the odds, so a value bet may be going for Swansea. It would be 90 minutes extra time or penalties, but I just feel, Villa did it a few years ago where they lost the playoff final, came back the next year, won, learnt from what happened.
I went for more goals. I think if it's sort of 2-1, 2-0 towards the end of the game, and Swansea are pushing, they get hit on the counter attack.
Yeah, I've gone for draw half time, Brentford full time. Okay, game preview 3 on Sunday. It's the League One playoff final. It's Blackpool against Lincoln, and I loved what Michael Appleton said after the game about his half-time team talk at the Stadium of Light. He said, I can't tell you what I said, I went old school. And he's a new school manager as well, isn't he? I mean, fair play to him.
But you need that every now and then.
Of course you do. There's not enough of that in football nowadays.
You've got to mix it up. And I always say, you can't be content with mediocre. Sometimes people, if they're not doing their job, if you're not doing it right, you can't keep saying, oh, never mind, you're doing okay. Don't worry about it, we'll do it next time. Sometimes you just need to, manager needs to come in, right, that's it. Ain't good enough, lads. Pull your finger out.
Well, because
you get that rabbit in the head like, oh, right.
It wasn't tactical, it wasn't technical,
No.
It was psychological, and they hadn't turned up, and they were in danger of throwing their season away. So then you need someone to just
of course. So
give you a little bit of a shake.
You need the old school, the hairdryer, the teacup throwing, the rocket up, the proverbial. It has to be done from time to time. And if you do it all the time, and someone walks in, shouts, and you just go, here we go again, whatever, yeah. But sometimes you do it in that one moment. Everybody's ears prick up, their eyes like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, we need to go out and sort that. And then you're on the front foot, and then you get the momentum shift, and that's what they did.
Brilliant half-time team talk, made 2 substitutions, and they went out and showed they were the Lincoln side they'd showed all season, didn't they?
They did, yeah. You feared for them at half-time, really. But, and Sunderland, I suppose, have had their issues under pressure, and maybe he mentioned that to them as well in the dressing room, that it won't take much to turn this game back round, because Sunderland...
Because their playoff record is horrific.
Yeah. So and the fans you can turn the fans.
You can, yeah. And so it's quite often, I think, in playoffs, I think the psychology of the playoffs is, it's not like the regular season. What you've done for 46 matches, you don't completely throw it out the window, but I think a lot of it is between the ears and sort of how you deal with moments and setbacks quite often, because there will be moments in games when you are behind, and we'll get to the sort of League 2-1 sort of soon. But on the other side of it, you mentioned, Scott, months ago that you thought Blackpool were one of the best teams in League One, and I think they've shown that as well against Oxford.
Yeah.
They're a different way of progressing, but absolutely sort of won the tie in the first leg, and in the second leg got a little bit nervy at 1 or 2 times, but they kept on finding ways to score.
No, they've done it in the first leg. And just on Sunderland, I think that definitely would have been the pre-match team talk, turn the fans. I thought the Sunderland fans were excellent in the second half when it was slipping away, but still behind the team. But Lincoln, I think, ultimately were the better side over the season, let alone over the 2 legs. I saw Blackpool a good few months ago, and when they were about mid-table, they were just starting their really good run. I saw them at the Valley, and they won 3-0, and the scoreline flattered Charlton, let me tell you.
I think they're the best one of the best attacking sides in the division.
They're also the best defensive side. They've got the best defensive record with the best goalkeeper.
They score a lot of goals, don't they? And they play an expansive, more expansive football for that division. So I think they're exciting to watch as well, Blackpool. And I just think, going to Wembley with the bigger pitch, with the fantastic surface, that might help them. That might play into their hands.
I mean, Lincoln do have. I mean, I think they're for me they're the best, most organised side of all 6 teams in the playoffs, actually. But Lincoln themselves, they got some very good young players. Morgan Rogers on loan from Manchester City. They got Brennan Johnson on loan from Nottingham Forest. His old man David was a pretty good player, wasn't he? You can learn off him. So there's almost like this really well-structured team against. It's wrong to say Lincoln are just a bunch of individuals because they're not, but they've got some great talent. How do you see that matching up?
I always feel like I'm just going to go for the more, what I consider to be, maybe it's just the expansiveness of sort of what Blackpool did in the playoffs with the 6 goals that they scored, but like Sims is scoring a lot of goals for them. Embleton, I mean, Sunderland will be kicking themselves. I mean, their player, and he seems to do better for everybody else in the division. Jerry Yates is somebody that has scored spectacular goals in the EFL. You feel like Lincoln will play to a certain level, but I feel like Blackpool have maybe just got that extra gear, and that could be decisive. They've only lost 2 of their last 24 matches or 25 matches, Blackpool, so they're in amazing form, really.
Okay, Betfred selection. Who's going to the Championship?
I'm going to go Blackpool. I'm going to go over 3.5 goals. I just think their expansive football will be way too much for Lincoln in this game.
I think it'll be a really fun game, but I'll go for Blackpool.
Yeah, I'm going for Blackpool as well, and I think I'm going for Blackpool -1. I think this, out of all 3 finals, with respect to Lincoln, I think this will be the most comfortable for one team, but we'll wait and see on that one. Okay, game preview 4. It is the League 2 playoff final. It's Morecambe against Newport County. And look, there were some excellent semi-final second legs, weren't there? But Forest Green Newport surely had to be the best. Newport 2-0 up going into the game, 3-2 down, nicked it in extra time in the end with I say a young Nicky Maynard. He's 34. We'll come on to Kevin Ellison in just a second because he's 42. But how do you recover from that mentally as well as physically, going all the way right to the very end? You must be knackered for a few days.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think it's difficult for these teams because the occasion can often get to you because they're not used to playing in the bigger stadiums on these occasions. Although it is more than half empty, it can be awe-inspiring, or it can be, occasion can get to you, and it can be overriding at times. A lot of players can freeze. They're going and you walk around and this is Wembley, and it's we've never been anywhere like this. Look at the dressing rooms are probably almost bigger than their stadiums. You've been there. There's like four home dressing rooms at Wembley. It's just expansive. It's huge. That can play a huge part, and I think mentally that can be very, very draining for a lot of those players.
I mentioned Nicky Maynard. I also mentioned Kevin Ellison as well. What a story, up against his old club, and he doesn't like Derek Adams, does he?
Yeah, he certainly doesn't like Derek Adams. He scored that goal against him in the league and then celebrated in front of his face. I mean, Ellison has been one of them sort of lower league legends that, for 20 years or so, just a real, he's joy to watch when he can't really run that well now, but he always sort of had the twinkle toes. I sort of watched a lot of him in the lower leagues, a real fun player, the sort of bedrock really of what sort of the English pyramid is all about, that a lot of people know him and sort of would recognise him, even if it's just from watching sort of Soccer Saturday and his name pops up and sort of scoring a regular amount of goals. You sort of feel like you know these players really well. I was at Derek Adams' first game in charge of Morecambe, away to Crawley. He has done an unbelievable job in sort of the time that he's been there to turn them. At the time they were, I think, bottom of the league, or certainly in the relegation
They were
zone.
bottom.
Yeah, and to go from there to beating a Tranmere team that had a budget way bigger than what they have. You see like David Nugent on the pitch, and James Vaughan, Jay Spearing in midfield, and like Morecambe have just put together this hard-working team. Derek Adams is not for everybody, and there's no doubt about that. He's made some enemies, and he, I spoke to a Scottish journalist, said that he's a very strange guy. So I don't think everybody's going to get on with him, but he did a fantastic job at Plymouth, and now he's doing probably an even better one at Morecambe.
Got them to survive last season. Joint second favourites to be relegated this season, just missed out on automatic promotion. 90 minutes away from being the third tier of English football where Morecambe have never been before. I mean, they're one of those sides that are very difficult to play against. They're happy not to have the ball, they'll sit back. They'll
attritional.
Definitely attritional, and they'll be happy to make it ugly as well. It's obviously ultimately about players performing on the day, and you're right, with respect to League Two players going to Wembley, it can be very intimidating.
It's a big leap, isn't it?
It's a massive leap. So which style do you trust more in terms of the real kind of attritional sit back and we'll grind this out, or Newport's more playing style?
I think in a game like this where the pitch is significantly bigger. And people say, it's only 5 yards this way and a couple of yards. That makes when you total area, it makes a big difference, and you can find teams that find a bit more space. At times, it's hard to be compact, in those games. I think Newport will probably be on top, but again, it's what happens in both boxes. We talk about managers that weren't particularly liked. You go back to Brian Clough, you go back to Martin O'Neill, that was in his mould as well. They were all about what happens in the middle of the pitch is irrelevant. It's that 18-yard box and that 18-yard box. That's all that matters. And I think this will be one of those games. I mean, Dean Windass scored for Hull. You talk about those old players that come up with a moment of magic. I think it might be one of those sort of games. I think it'll be very, very tight, this one.
OK, give us your Betfred selection for this one.
I'm going to go 1-1 after 90 minutes and extra time, and Newport to win on penalties.
Ooh, exciting.
I like the fact that Newport, over the last few years, have shown they can deal with pressure situations. The cup runs that they've been on, the way that they've matched Premier League teams, I think is testament to the manager, Flynn, who's done a really good job. And I back them to sort of be better suited to the occasion. OK,
I found it really difficult, the most difficult out of all three playoff finals, to try and predict this one. I went for Morecambe at the start of the playoffs, so I'm going to stick with them. I just feel their style is almost like what you're going to get, whatever the occasion. Newport, you're right, have done the business recently, but yeah, I'm going for Morecambe to win. And with their style as well, Morecambe to win 2-0. OK, congratulations to Sutton United. They are back in the Football League. Who will join them in the playoffs? My Bromley will wait and see what can happen there. What do you think, Mark?
Notts County, in the last few weeks, they've really stepped it up. They beat Sutton. They've also won away at Wrexham. So there's sort of two teams, one champions, one sort of top six, that they've shown that they can sort of match it. And in the playoffs, I looked at their squad. They're carrying a lot of League Two players in there. And I just wonder if in the playoffs, we've spoken earlier on about the disappointment of not doing it the year before, spurring you on. That's when Notts County are, so I'll go for them. OK. Danny, have you got a team?
I'm going for teams at opposite ends of the country. I'm going for Torquay and Hartlepool. I think they have a great chance of doing it. I think, really, because we just want Jeff Stelling to be able to say, Hartlepool are back in there. We all know it's Jeff Stelling's Hartlepool, isn't it? He's the only fan that they have. No, I just think, again, it's so difficult in those playoffs because it's not standard playoffs. It's a little bit complicated. You need a good run of form and you need a massive slice of luck. And I just think sometimes other teams, those travelling is never easy. No. Those long journeys, that B&B down in Torquay or in Hartlepool, never the most comfortable conditions for the opposition.
No, and I spoke to Lenny Lawrence not that long ago, who gave me my professional league debut, and he said, "Do you know what? It's not about momentum. You can go into the playoffs with momentum." He said, "I've done it, lost, and I sneaked in and went up as well." So we'll wait and see. But good luck, all the teams involved there. OK, let's go to the team treble then, shall we? Each of us pick a team that we think will win over the coming days and give an explanation why. Who have you gone for, Danny?
I'm going for Brentford. I think they've been fantastic in the Championship this season. They've been absolutely superb. Tony missed quite a few chances in his last game, but his goal-scoring record this season has just been off the charts. I think he's going to come up trumps, and I think Brentford will win this comfortably.
Mark?
I'm going for Newport in the League Two playoff final against Morecambe. I like the fact that they've dealt with pressure before. They've had some really good cut runs, and they've also dealt with adversity because against Forest Green, they conceded 2 goals really quickly. I think many a team would have sort of sunk under that, and they didn't. And so, yeah, I fancy Newport.
You won't be surprised to know who I'm going for. The other in League
Tangerine
One,
Dream.
Blackpool, exactly. Like I said earlier, I think they're the most organised side of the 6 teams in the playoffs. Best keeper in League One, best defence, and also fantastic. They've got 2 sitting holding midfielders who just protect that
means
defence.
they're getting beat.
And 2 strikers up front who are scoring for fun. So yeah, don't go for Blackpool. No, that is my bet there for Blackpool. OK, let's move on to Euro predictions, shall we? We're looking ahead to that now, really, aren't we? I mean, before we look at one team who we think is going to win and a player who will stand out, got to ask you your opinion on Gareth Southgate's provisional 33-man squad. Surprised you weren't in there in picking.
I did have my hand up. I was like that.
He loves a right back.
It's like, how many right backs can you have in?
Look, Mark, I'll ask you first. What did you make of the 33? I mean, it's not too much to have a go at because there's so many, but there's still some big names not picked.
No, there were 2 that I feel sorry for. Danny Ings, I think that the Ings should have been in. I would have had him ahead of Ollie Watkins. I think that, I know you've got to trust his fitness, but I just think in terms of pure quality, if he's on the transfer market this summer, I mean, I think that Man City, Manchester United, Tottenham would all be in for him, and rightly so. He's already played at Liverpool, and so I think he's really unlucky. Probably just timed his run. He was at his better form sort of earlier on in the campaign, but whenever I watch Southampton, he's a massive threat. And at the back, somebody that's not mentioned too much, but Tomori. I don't know what happened at Chelsea and why he was in the team and then out of the squad completely and sent off to sort of to Milan. Not a bad place to be sort of sent. He has done fantastically well for them. He can play as a left-sided centre-back, and England haven't got too many of them options. And I just think it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And I think he's been better than Cody. I mean, he's been better than Godfrey. I think he's been better than Mings as well. I like Ben White.
I think with Tomori, it's the fact that he plays in the back 4 has gone against him. I think that's the only reason that he's not in. And I think we all know if it's going to be Maguire and Stones, and you're hoping they're going to play all 5, 6, 7 games of the tournament. If Maguire's not fit, you then switch to a back 3.
You don't think he could play in the back 3?
He's not played in it all season. So why would you not go with Ben White that has played in that position quite a lot? Godfrey can play in that position as well and has played in the back 3. So I think you go with, they're all unknowns, I think you go with a player that's played in that position. Harry Maguire's fitness and availability changes the whole England dynamic because you go from a back 4 with him in it to a back 5.
Do you think England have to, if Harry Maguire's not fit?
Without a doubt, because I don't think that. You're then looking at Stones and Mings, probably. I don't believe that's strong enough as a back 2 pairing to win the Euros. I think as a back 3, you might have half a chance.
Then do you still have 2 holders?
Yes.
With a back 3?
Yeah, I think so.
You're losing a forward-thinking player.
I think you could possibly play Mount as one of the holders in that, alongside possibly Rice. Mount's been disciplined enough to do that role. He's still going to get forward. But then you've got to rely on your front 4 players to just say, right, go on, you go and do what you've got to do. And I agree with you with Ings. You're looking at, he's the only one that I sort of question why is he not in it, because you go through it and you think, well, Harry Kane's going to play, and he's going to play nearly every single minute if he's fit. If he's not, maybe it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin that comes in as the number 9. You're then looking at substitutions. Who do I need? I need a goal. Am I then looking at Greenwood, who's an exceptional striker? Great striker of the ball and is a finisher. Danny Ings is also a finisher. And I think that's why maybe Ollie Watkins will possibly miss out, because he's maybe great from the start, but he's not going to start. You know, Kane would have to be injured. Dominic Calvert-Lewin would have to be injured for Watkins to start as the number 9. Is he going to be beneficial bringing him on as a sub? No. Whereas Ings, that chance falls to someone in the box last 10 minutes. I fancy him to put it away.
OK, so maybe surprised there. Got to ask you about right back. Who do you take?
Walker starts.
Who misses out?
Walker starts for me. I think he's the best right back. Experience, defensive qualities are the best. He's got great pace. He's also got a fabulous relationship with John Stones, who's going to play on that side, and that counts for an awful lot in this instance. I had it with Rio Ferdinand in 02, and Ashley Cole had it with Sol Campbell the other side. So that makes a big difference, that understanding that you have. And you then assume that Kyle Walker's going to play every single game. The direct replacement for him, I think, is Kieran Trippier, who's been fantastic in La Liga, has won the Liga, only conceded 25 goals, one of the best defensive coaches. You've then got the issue of if you go to wing-backs, it's Reece James or is it Trent Alexander-Arnold? Reece James can play, is a little bit more versatile. We've seen that, has played in the back three at times as well, if you have to switch to that.
I can't wait to see what your answer is here. Who's missing out?
I'm taking all of them.
Are you?
I think Trent will go and not play. I think that's the difference. And I think, again, this is all about... And this, I would call it, when you're not looking at playing against Scotland and the Czech Republic and Croatia in the early... You're assuming that England are going to get out of the group. So then you're looking at last 16, quarterfinals, semi-finals, really. And you're thinking, right, what do you have to do to win those games? You have to be defensively solid. You can't concede goals because they're generally low-scoring games. So you're thinking, I need defensive players. So I need to think about keeping clean sheets more than anything else. Trent is an incredible player going forward, but we've seen on many different occasions that he can be caught out defensively. And people say, yeah, but he whips crosses in and he assists. Trippier's done that. Gareth changed the system last time for Trippier to play wing-back in the World Cup. We saw his free kick. You've got other players that can put the ball in. Harry Kane can take direct free kicks. You've got Calvin Phillips that takes set pieces all over the place. You've got other players that can do that.
So what's the point in taking him if you're thinking he's not going to play a minute?
He's got 26, why not? It's an option, isn't it? That suddenly you're thinking, actually, if we do need to switch to wing-backs, can I play Trent Alexander as a wing-back? Yes, I can. Am I going to trust him in a semi-final or a quarter-final up against the best defensively? I'm not sure that you do. So I think he will take him, but I don't think he's going to play a huge part in it.
What do you think to that, Mark? And do you know your England team?
Yeah, England team. Yeah, I think I know the England team. Yeah, I'd go Henderson in goal ahead of Pickford. I don't. He won't.
Would you?
I would go Henderson in goal. I would go with Kyle Walker at right back, Stones, Maguire, and Luke Shaw across the back four. I mean, I'm assuming that the players are fit here. I'd go Henderson and Rice as the two in midfield. I would then play Mason Mount in the number 10, but sort of in those bigger games, he's going to probably have to play almost in a line with those other three just to protect them. I'd have Foden on the left. I'd have Jadon Sancho on the right, and I'd have Harry Kane up front.
What's that from your 11?
Very, very similar. I would probably switch Sancho with Sterling, just for a little bit more experience. Sancho maybe coming off the bench, a bit more of an impact, but very, very similar. And I think that three in midfield, Rice is the out-and-out holder. You can almost play an imbalanced midfield with Henderson, like he's done for Liverpool, holding a little bit but still getting forward at times, and then Mount in a similar sort of position. So it's not one with two in front. It's one with one slightly more in front on the right-hand side and one slightly more in front of that on the left-hand side. But I think Mount and Henderson are clever enough to play that position. It's three in midfield, isn't it? With Rice as the middle one and the other two with a bit more licence to go forward.
Can't wait. Okay, let's look at the predictions then for the tournament, shall we? Both team to win and standout player. What are you going for?
Standout player, I'm going to go Phil Foden. I think that the form that he's in, he plays for England, he's in the team. It's just where do you play him? You could play him in 3 or 4 different positions. I think he's grown so much this season, and he's really performed. You know, goals, assists, and he's different. You know, he's that ball carrier, deft of touch with his left foot. I think he really could be sensational. As for team, there's all the usual candidates in there. You know, Belgium, you expect to be up there. England, we hope. I just think Germany might be a dark horse. I think the fact that it's last chance saloon, you know, for a lot of these German players, Thomas Müller comes back into it, Hummels with experience. They know how to play tournament football. You don't have to be great in the first 3 games. Get yourselves out of the group, and then they know how to perform. And with that extra little experience, I think they could go a long way.
Mark?
I'm going to go for, I think the best outsider is Denmark. And I think if you look at the sort of European Championships, you quite often get surprise results. Greece won it. Portugal were not fancied at all when they won it 5 years ago. Czech Republic reached the final in '96. I don't know why in the European Championship you do get it. Maybe because so many teams are closely matched. It doesn't take that much to sort of to plot a path through.
Denmark themselves.
Denmark themselves came off the beach, and Denmark were also in the last World Cup.
Greece had to go off the beach as well.
Yeah, they did. And in the last World Cup.
Don't talk about beaches. Right?
We can only hope. If you go back to the last World Cup, they got beat by Croatia on penalties. So they weren't far away from a team that reached the final. And I looked at their team the other day. It's full of players that play real high level, like from Schmeichel in goal for Leicester. Kier plays for Milan at centre half. You've got somebody like Christensen at Chelsea. Eriksen's just won the league in Italy. Poulsen plays for Leipzig. They've got a lot of players that are playing like high-level European football. So, what I think is going to be a very congested tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if they went far. I think France are the best team. I will caveat it with that. In terms of players, I won't go for an obvious one. I'll go for Malinovsky for Ukraine. He reminds me of sort of the way that Gerrard and Lampard shoot from distance and were always so accurate at doing it and didn't mind missing from that kind of range. Atalanta are one of the best run teams in Europe. He scored a lot of goals towards the end of the season, and what I like about him is that he steps up in big matches. He's been at Atalanta for 2 years. He scored in 3 different games against Juventus, so this is not somebody that scores against Benevento. He comes up in big games, and Ukraine are in a really sort of soft group, if you like, with Netherlands and Austria and Macedonia. I think they might be able to get out of it with somebody like him in the team. So he's somebody that maybe the viewers don't know too much about that could shine.
I totally agree with you with Denmark. I thought they were excellent in the World Cup and unlucky, actually, against Croatia to be knocked out. And I don't see them much different. So I agree with the outside bet. I am going to be obvious with both the team and the player as well. I'm going for England. I think the fact that there's only one game all the way through to the final where you don't play at home, I think is going to be massive. I really do. I think we can build our way through the tournament. We could argue till the cows come home in the best 11, but teams during a tournament normally develop themselves, don't they? And then when you get to that towards the end, they will have difficult games, though, won't they? Round of 16 and perhaps quarters. I just feel by then we would have picked up a bit of momentum. And I think Gareth Southgate as well, just his emotional intelligence, the way he almost talked the team through the penalties, and even beforehand he said this is what's about to happen, so when it happens we don't freeze.
I think they put a lot of effort into that, and that type, the psychology of it, building the team ethic, making sure everybody is together, making sure there are no bad apples within that squad. And I spoke to Gareth closely sort of after about that sort of penalty situation, and if you go back and look at it, they isolated all the players. The 5 penalty takes, they knew who they were going to be, so they just took them all away and they kept them away. They didn't want masseurs, coaches, all saying, just hit it hard, hit the target and all this. They took them out of it, and they said they don't need that. They know what they're doing. Yeah. So and that was pre-planned until Vardy didn't want to take one. And Eric Dyer had to step up. That was the only that was a bit of a spanner in the works. It was like, Eric, you're not taking. Oh, hang on a minute, no, we need you back in. But they dealt with that, and they got through it. But I think there is no stone left unturned in that. My only defensively, Harry Maguire, I think is so important, and I just worry that his fitness might not quite be there.
Yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. In terms of the player, I'm going for Harry Kane. I think he's just coming off the back of a season where I think he'll be top scorer in the tournament. I think he'll take penalties, he'll take free kicks. If he's injured, he'll still play. Off his heel, off the back of his head. Unless he's got a broken leg, he's playing.
I think he might even play one of those.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel, in the season in the Premier League where he was top scorer, but top assists as well, he's almost developed his game. And he's a clever guy. If he's not quite 100% physically right, he can still get through it and pick his moments. So for me, I'm going for England and Harry Kane. We'll wait and see. And that's it. End of the show. Danny, great to see you on the final one especially. What are you up to this weekend? Anything?
This weekend, well, I was watching a bit of football,
Champions League final?
Well, yeah, of course.
And Championship final.
Might play a bit of golf before that just to try and relax, and then see who gets into the Premier League. You know, that's the ultimate, isn't it, for those teams? And then Champions League final is going to be intriguing because two of my boys are Chelsea fans. Obviously, I play for City, so it could be a little bit of an issue on the sofa.
Brilliant. Mark, I have to say, I've thoroughly enjoyed your company, both on and off air this season. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah, it's been really, I think, entertaining and enlightening as well.
Brilliant. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to have our end-of-season drink as well, so look forward to that. OK, that is it for this week and for this season as well. Please, on behalf of Betfred and also a different league show, first of all, hope you've enjoyed the shows throughout the season. And second of all, if you are to gamble, please gamble responsibly. Take care and have a great summer.